I got a little bit worried for a second there. That's probably. Join Ben and I as we set off on our bikes to explore one of the most challenging full drive tracks in Australia. But firstly, a big thank you to all my sponsors who've helped me racing this year for the 2025 season. Alright, so let's check out where we're going. We're in far north Queensland. We started at the Daintree village. Just note, you can't get fuel there. The closest fuel's about 20 kilometres away at Wonga Beach. We just crossed the river, and then the track has quite significant elevation. You can see in the top left hand corner the large climb there. That is up Big Red, which actually has a 30% incline, and the total climb for the whole route is about 1,200 metres. And we end at the town of Wodjil. So just left the Daintree village, heading onto the dirt roads now. I love this bit where just up ahead you see the vines hanging over the road. So pretty. The whole track is just stunning through ancient rainforest, and definitely past a few farms as well. So this is the official start of the Creb track, just before we cross the Daintree River. This is the widest water crossing, and you'll see my partner Ben there crossing on a bit of an arc. So that part is the shallowest part that's best for bikes. Head in an arc to the right and follow where the ripples are. You can kind of see that where the water changes in the video there. I got a little bit worried for a second there.
It wasn't that deep.
Heading out of the river, we came onto this beautiful lush farmland. Geez, the cows here are lucky. Anyway, you would have noticed I got a bit excited crossing the river. Well, guys, we weren't too sure about how deep it was going to be. Sometimes it's so deep you've got to carry your bikes across. So yeah, I was a bit nervous about the crossing. Bit worried about the rocky riverbed, and was hoping that I'd be able to get across without dropping the bike or anything, because obviously if you drown the bike right at the start of your expedition, that's not really a great start to the day. So I guess initially we talked about walking the bikes over, but yeah, a mate encouraged me to just ride it, and yeah, so I was pretty stoked to ride across my biggest river crossing yet, and not fall off the bike. Had a little bit of a wobbly moment, but made it. Anyway, so yeah, here we are heading into the beautiful rainforest. You might have seen Ben hit a little bit of a slippery bit there. So in this video I'm on a Yamaha WR250 sponsored by Pitmans, and Ben is on an AJP adventure bike, so make sure you watch along to see who hits the ground first. These clay sections just coming up with the deep ruts were really quite slippery. It's definitely hard to see that in the video, but not a lot of traction there. Definitely can see how this track becomes impassable once there's been a bit more rain and it's wet. It's just so slippery you can't get through, and they close the track. When we arrived in the Daintree, there was a huge amount of unusual rain for that time of year. So the track was too wet, and we kept an eye on, there's a Facebook page called the Local Creb Track Conditions, and some of the locals help to let you know when the track's dry enough to attempt. So it was just sort of the day before that we made the decision to go, knowing it had dried out enough to get through.
Okay. Slippery as fuck here. Alright.
So yeah, you can see the track hadn't actually fully dried out, but it was still passable. Ben put his foot down on that bit, so I knew coming up that the descent was a bit of a slippery one, but definitely I probably got a bit too worried and just fell over at the start and then eased the bike down. The video footage doesn't do a great job of sort of showing the angle of the landscape here. Definitely looks pretty flat when there's a fair bit of elevation. So yes, I was the first one to drop the bike.
Oh dear. Okay. That's probably not the plan. Okay, we now have both boots definitely wet. Alright. At least we recorded it, hey? Did you see?
No.
Probably not. Well, it was quite a drop in.
Did you pause it?
So lucky with just perfect weather for the ride.
Hi,
Yeah, it's just absolutely great now.
can you just take a photo of us too?
Yeah, of course. Ollie, they are.
Continuing to head up small inclines. On the side of the track a few times there were, I guess, deviations off to the left, but every time we sort of stayed to the right, and that kept us on the main track. Timing for us with this adventure worked out really well. This was September the 27th, which is actually my late father's birthday, so it was really special to be going on an adventure. He was such an outdoorsy man who took us on so many amazing trips around Australia exploring, and so to be able to go and do this adventure on his birthday was really special. So we're heading from the Daintree village all the way up north, starting up the Cape towards the Lion's Den Hotel where we're going to stay for the night. all up, there's probably about 110 kilometres. The southern end, or I guess sort of the first part of the Creb track, is the most interesting. That's definitely got the most technical sort of four-wheel drive sections, and the second part of the Creb track is actually more just graded dirt road. This part of the track, we're just starting to ascend that steep incline up Big Red. This is a 30% incline. Definitely would be extremely challenging in the wet. And yeah, this is where Ben had his first spill. I just rode past.
Are you okay?
It was actually too slippery to stop on that bit, but with all the washouts for the water flow to keep the track in good condition, overall I found Big Red not quite as challenging as I had expected on the bike. I again had been a bit nervous about getting up Big Red, and I actually didn't believe we'd done Big Red at the time. I was like, nah, it must be bigger than that. But anyway, this was definitely Big Red. Watching the video footage back, I can see how the incline does just keep going on and on, but at the time I guess we're having a lot of fun, and yeah, it was quite manageable, but definitely slippery in parts, and at some parts I sort of rode off a little bit to the edge in the leaf litter just to get a bit extra traction and get up those steep hills. Heading off to the left up a very short slippery track to a little lookout. Didn't manage to film the way down, but that was slippery as I had to paddle my feet a little bit to get down that, but hey, stayed on the bike, no more crashes. Time to find a nice spot for lunch. It really was just incredible how on this relatively small section of track the colour changes in the dirt and the landscape, yeah, just stunning. filmed a small part of the later part of the Creb track. There was a lot of these sort of graded dirt roads that you can see here, but also there's some pretty nice views as well where you're up higher and the trees opened out a bit. Junction just past here, we headed off to the right into the town of Wodjil. They do have fuel where you can pay by card 24 hours. This is where you exit the Creb track onto the bitumen, leaving Wodjil. With the Creb track finished, this map shows where we went next via Bloomfield. Roadworks were just part of the adventure. Anyway, in Bloomfield area, Ben had planned a little full drive track for us to head off onto. So here we are, heading off towards the Bloomfield Passage. This little track, part of it follows the beach, and part of it is just a little bit inland from the beach as well. So we headed off. This is the bit where I definitely had the advantage being on a much smaller bike, lighter bike with better tyres for the terrain. Thankfully Ben did not end up in the ocean, but we were a bit worried for a second there. Very cool to be able to ride out on this sandbar with the ocean on either side. Definitely do not recommend swimming here though. We are absolutely in crocodile country. Caused by the waves were a lot of fun. And how's that? Alright, last little bitumen leg to finish the day. We're now heading off, approaching the Lion's Den Hotel. This is an old pub with lots of character from 1875. It was recently flooded and they have reopened. Great food, good accommodation, everything's neat and clean. Definitely recommend. Write your name on the wall and see if you can spot ours. Follow along for many more moto adventures.